Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody is well. Do you guys ever get stuck trying to send a color through space? Do you ever get stuck? No matter how much you mix and you got a million colors in the palette, when it's all done, there's just not quite enough depth. Well, today we're going to talk about that. So why don't we jump right in and get started? All right, well, this lovely piece was sent in by Karen. And before we looked at the color, I actually wanted to start with the value. The problems that we have here are no different than the John Carlson painting we looked at last night. Sometimes you can think about, yeah, well, that's an outdoor painting and it's got this particular light situation, and that's all true, but the principles are still the same. Okay, so what we're going to do is our darker, richer is going to come forward, as is our lightest lights. So in the foreground, everything from the bar and the chair to the person sitting there, we're going to make sure that everything on every piece of that is one, either darker, or two, lighter. Okay, and then we're also going to make sure that it's richer or cleaner up front and grayer and more obscure in the back. Now, she has a lot of that happening already, but again, it's really a matter of measure. We want to make it extremely clear. And what happens here is our brains get in the way, saying it can't be that dark, or well, I see this and that doesn't match. No. Remember, we're designing a piece here. So again, in this piece, what I want to do is I basically want to take everything right there, and I want to make sure that anything below that line is stronger and everything below that line is weaker. And when I do that, what's going to happen is it's going to really help pop her off of that background. Okay? And it'll be very, very strong. Okay, so with the limited time we have, I thought I might do a little black and white here. But I think, why don't we just jump over to the color version and we'll watch that value thing happen in color, because the lesson today is about color. Now, they were using a really limited palette here. Titanium white, yellow ochre, ivory black, vermilion, and Payne's gray. So I'm going to... what am I going to do? I'm going to just change that to white, yellow, black, red, and blue. So that Payne's gray I'll call blue. The black is more neutral. Vermilion is red. Ivory black is obviously black. Yellow ochres are ochre. And flake white, or they use titanium white, but can you switch to flake white? Yeah. A lot of artists do that. They'll start with titanium white, because it's a better mixing white, just the body of it, and it's got a little stronger tinting strength. And then as they finish the painting and they want the texture, then that's where the flake white can come in. So I guess it's time to get to work, huh? So what would that be? What would that be? So let's come down here, not even worry about that background, but how are we going to set up that bar? So that bar is leading the way. In other words, at the bottom of the canvas there, we meet that as soon as we walk into the canvas. So we don't necessarily want it the brightest, right? We'd rather her shirt be brighter. So I think one color that could really help here is because we don't have like a dark warm, and we can get around that, but if you had a burnt umber, I think that would really let you get in some of these darker values and still stay a bit richer. So you don't have to, but let's just test what this is. So something like this is probably going to serve us better up here. Again, one thing this does is look at that line against the knee there. Right? Do we really want to be focused right there? All that is doing is stealing from this. Okay, so we got to play that note down, and simply by bringing that value closer, that'll do it. Now this may not look lit up at this point, we can talk about that, but right now I'm just going to get big value color blocks set up. And of course we can talk about sending this near to far, but again, right now I tend to make sure I know the big pieces and have the big pieces. Let's go ahead and get a nice cast shadow across there. And let's see, that light's coming in from the side, so that cast shadow is going to be a long cast shadow, not a short cast shadow, right? It's coming in like this. You know, if it was coming in down, it would be a little shorter, but coming in from the side, indicated right here on the side, then we got to have those longer shadows. Okay, maybe even longer than that. So now if we come back, we can see that, okay, immediately, now we can get up to her face. Right? Do you see? So all I did was I took the color out of that bottom, actually right below the knee. That's the lightest. It's very yellow, very colorful, and right next to a black. So I took that out. Let me get rid of some of those marks so we're not overcoming them later. And then if we quote unquote echoed that in the background behind her, what might that look like? So what we want to do is we want to go a less value, well, excuse me, I'm in chroma right now, but we definitely want to go chroma, but we also want to go a value less. Right, and it's actually a little bit lighter, but what it does is it takes some weight off of there. And then, you know, this right here is also really bringing things forward. We can change that a little bit, but just, again, see how clear those lines are right there? We don't want that to be clear. We want her glasses to be clear. We want her collar to be clear. Okay, and again, just real generally, what if, let's see, what am I doing here? I'm going to go all the way back because I'd like to keep this in layers. Okay, so let's come up a little bit. So what if, just right now, for everything on the wall, we're going to take these little decorations and keep them. Just kind of for argument's sake, what does that look like? And then over here, if it was a little bit darker because it was the shadow. Whoops. I said a little bit darker. That went. Okay. Maybe. That still seems a little strong to me. Even the color's a bit strong. There we go. There we go. And then again, the white in the background is Actually very distracting. You see how much cleaner her face gets when I take those white lines out of the background? And I know they're not white, but right, what a difference. Because now there's nothing to distract from the face. It's boom. Now the same with this. Well, let me just, in general, because we want to do this whole thing, let's just get all of this. Now we can put a little detail back here, right? But just for the sake of time, I'm trying to show you what would happen if we took more out back here. And a lot of times our answer is taking out, not necessarily putting in. Now, what about that shirt hanging or coat hanging behind her? What could we do with that? Well, again, it's relatively light. So what if we do that? And it's yellow-orange is a pretty bright. So what if we took it more to a neutral blue or green? And what that will do is we can drop the value. So that's too bright. And also what I'm doing is, what is this color back here? All right, so weaker, but again, it needs to be more, I think. More meaning it's a little too dark, a little too heavy. We want it gray and distance. The chroma is so strong. Yeah, maybe that. That might be slightly cool. We'll see. Okay, so that color's pretty strong right now. There we go. So just took a bit of the bite of that blue out of it. Okay. So really whatever that is back there is going to depend on the shadow, her shadow. Let's see, and this is a little tricky because we have the red shirt that we want to keep separated from her face tones, but even in her face tones, how's everybody doing? I'm just getting totally lost in this. So, good morning, everybody. Good morning. So, we've got an introvert trying to stream here. So I'm lost inside my head, so you guys make sure you kick and scream and make sure I know you're here, and if you got a question, let me know. So at this point, what we're trying to do is, okay, what is the shadow on the face and the shadow on the shirt? And should those be separate, or do we want to kind of tie those together? Let us see. Well, why don't we come up for a shadow for the shirt first of all? And again, since we want that to be close, I'm going to have that, not unlike our red apple, I'm going to have that shadow have a bit of color. Because again, I would like that shadow to be stronger than that tabletop. So how am I going to do that? Slightly darker, but you see that red, the chroma? It's that richness. So that bar or tabletop reads as more gray. Okay, and I'm not going to go crazy on here, so the drawing will be up to you guys, but I want to give you the hit. Yeah, and take that collar and show us that that light's hitting her, right? And that's the reason we need some of this dark. And not only that, if the light's hitting here, it's going to have to give us a good cast shadow all back here. And then, is there any way we can just, might be a little bit much, but let's see. Let us see. I'm wondering. So I feel like this is probably too heavy. And we can give some rim light there if we want. But let's experiment here. Let's flatten this out. Okay, and then the same thing, similar, would happen down here in the hands. Good morning, Tom and Linda. Hope you guys are having a good time. Yeah, so that push or pull, and again, we're in a little bit of an intellectual thing here, but our whole purpose is to make this thing sing. And if this is turning away from the light, then the knuckles would be on this hand too. What's turning away? It's turning away. Okay. Let's see. So a reminder for anybody new, the month of December, we are going to be going live. We got to finish this cast shadow. There's a little bit of light hitting there. It comes down, and then that's going to come over like that. And so now we've got that dark against that blue back there. And when I started that shadow on her face, did you guys remember how wrong that looked? Oh, that's so wrong, Jason. So wrong. Have you no shame? Have you no shame? It's not about shame. It's just about a little bit of experience and trusting that our dark, light, gray pattern will work out. Okay, who am I doing this for you guys, or am I doing it for me? Why don't you guys remind me that this is more about you than me? Because right now I'm just kind of scratching, but still, it's painting. It's painting. So let's take a look. Did that get more powerful as we simplified that shadow? And so what we've done is we've told the viewer, hey, you don't have to show all the detail in the shadow. Leave that for the light, and that'll make your light more powerful. How are we doing on time? All right, we're about 15 minutes in. How's everything going? Ah, there's my favorite person. You guys are awesome. Okay, and by the way, this is getting in the way a little bit. Distracting. So let's just take this. Oops. Let's just take this light out here so it's not distracting us from what's actually happening in the painting. Your light wants to go to the lightest thing. So as we take that out too, this painting will get more powerful immediately. Okay, really more lit up. Now, let's see. Am I going to take... I'll come back to the blue. Let's stick with the red. Let us stick with the red. So there we go. So if this is the red up front, then if I lighten that a little bit and gray it a bit, then my red shadow in the background, i.e. on the red sweater hanging back here, We want that to be weak, right? So if that shadow's there and this shadow is here, do you see that? So this shadow back here, we want it to be less. And it does have to have a light and a shadow, however we want to do it. By the way, this setup is very, very complicated. So you did a great job on a very, very complicated thing. But we just want to push that measure and be ruthless with background. Oh, that's background? Oh, your background? Well, you know what? You get about 1/10 of what I'm serving everybody else. Uh-oh, what happened? What happened? So we're going to take this black out again down here, because I do want to shrink this and pull it up. It's important to see it on different scales so that you can read, you can read it when it's a small thumbnail. That's when you can see if it's working. Right? Is that still a good clean image? And I would say, yeah, that's a pretty good clean image, and we haven't even gotten to the light yet. So yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Okay, so I think before we get any further, why don't we just be fancy for a minute? The month of December is for me to be learning all this stuff, getting to be a good host. Oh, my fancy stuff has gone away. All right, well, we'll be fancy later then. There we go. Let me come back and say hi, and now we can be fancy. So we are on our march to 1,000 subscribers. So make sure you subscribe and like the video. And come back for more. We're going to be live 3 times a day in December. Mornings, 8 a.m. Pacific time for the student feedback. That's what you're seeing right now. Afternoons, welcome you into the studio, and I'll be painting. Most likely I'm going to be painting on this moonscape just over my shoulder this afternoon. And then in the evenings we have a look at the masters. Last night I looked at John Carlson's landscape painting, 2 of them, and we talked about values, and the same thing we're doing right here. It's worth taking a look at. And always, please make sure you give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Okay, back to the work. So now what I want to do, and immediately you have vermilion, and wherever that comes in, I don't know exactly how strong it is, but what you want to do is you want to add enough white to that, and what that'll do is it'll take a little bit of the color out, but it'll make it look lit up. So watch this collar. Whoops. And oops, something got hit. Something got hit. So what I want to see is I want this just below the value of her face. Okay, so it's still a little bit darker of her face. But look, it'll continue the light. Oh. Uh-oh, guys, I'm just having fun again. I thought you guys were supposed to yell at me at this point. But do you see that color will begin to come alive there? Boom. And then they're really coming off the background. Now, once we have that, I can come back. I got a rough mark on there. That's okay. You could come back in the background. Well, before we hit back to the background, let's come up to here. And what can we do with those glasses? Well, we can make them a pretty sharp dark. could make them a pretty sharp dark. Make sure they... Now again, we could put light and shade on that, and it's hard for me to get down that small because it's pixelated. And then what's our upper end? And with all this warm, what I do with my upper end, I would have a bit of Payne's gray in there, just keep it a little bit on the cool side. And when that highlight and light is cool, look at how it's going to show up. And then that would be tied in, again, getting a little bit small here with our highlights. The side of the face. Right, wherever that came in. There's a little highlight on the lip maybe. Of course, there'll be highlight on the glasses. You may want to do it there rather than on the edge, I don't know. All right, how's that looking to you guys? Is that making sense? Is that making sense? Hi, Susan. So Susan's with us. Hey, just saying she hasn't been able to do it. Look at that. Boom. She made it. I appreciate it. It's a little bit of a switch getting and commenting on the Google thing, on the YouTube thing, but we'll get it up. I appreciate you guys making the effort to switch over for me. So unless there's any comments or questions, I'm going to probably call that a day. And then what I would actually do, as if I'm waiting for any questions, if you got them to come in, we got maybe a 45-second delay, a minute delay, is I'm going to go ahead and what will happen if I push that background even grayer? What would that look like? Right, she gets a little bit stronger. Gets a little bit stronger. We'll keep this darker over here, but not. Right, you see, it's just a bit, but that bit matters. Every little bit matters. And just releases off of there. And of course, that beautiful light and skin tone. Oops, a little bit big. Guys, I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop. We're just getting going. Okay, something like that. I would probably be careful with that. Because we're not sure where to go here. I might keep this a bit more obscure on this side. You know, once we get there, great. But let this happen, right? Because I love the idea of us running around here. Boom. We're obviously, this should be the big note, right? And then just, boom, a little echo back here of the red, and then light and shadow of the blue and echo there too. I didn't get to work on that, but all right, let's get these crazy marks over here and take a look at before and after and see if we've affected this painting at all. So we started, remember we started with the bar, the countertop. It's hard to realize how powerful yellow, orange, and red are. And so if you've got something yellow, orange, or red that's not in the focal point or that you've got to get past, it's really important to really play that down. And then the other thing we have to do is we need to really separate that background, right? I mean, drastically separate it so that they know, wow, okay, so she's up front, right? When I'm talking here with her, I don't want to be figuring out that sweater behind her head and focusing on her eyes, right? I want to be able to focus completely on her with no even temptation to go back behind her, right? At least until, bam, she's solid, and then maybe a third or fourth read, we can go back. All right, well, that's a lot of words, and it looks like everybody's happy. So we will call that a morning this morning, and we'll be back painting this afternoon and this evening. Tomorrow we're going to be working with Janie's got an eagle flying and a waterfall, a brilliant waterfall, kind of in the mood of Hudson River School. So we're going to take a look at that in the morning. And so I hope you guys will be back. And in the meantime, I hope to see you guys soon. Thanks so much, Susan. So glad you made it. We'll talk to you guys later.